Everybody. I am Kristy Woodson Harvey. I'm so excited to be here with you guys tonight. I'm like a minute early because I'm going to share our watch party really quickly to my Facebook page as well. So if you're on here and you want to share the watch party to your Facebook page, you are welcome to do so, and that is so great. Big thank you to the Dare County Arts Council for hosting me tonight. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. We'll give it just a second and then we'll start talking. So this is so great. Dare County is one of my favorite places, and I'm a big fan of Downtown Books in Manio. So I hope that a lot of you guys go there and visit them and give them lots of support. They are an incredible, incredible bookstore and have overcome a lot these past few weeks and months, and they have signed copies of my books. So that's really great. All right, I'm gonna give us just another second and then we will get started. It's so funny starting these things when you're sort of sitting here talking to yourself. But I am going to be answering questions. So anytime that you have a question, just pop in there, ask it, or if you have a comment, anything at all, I'm happy to talk about anything. So I'm just excited to be here with you guys tonight. So I'm here primarily to talk about my brand new book, Feels Like Falling. Well, I guess it's not brand new anymore. It still feels brand new. But it came out April 28th. It looks like this. This is the new one, Feels Like Falling. And it's just been a really sort of unusual time to launch a book, as I'm sure all of you can imagine. I usually go on these big 6-week book tours and go all over the country, and because of coronavirus, of course, I have not been able to do that. So I've been more grateful than ever for my incredible, incredible independent bookstores like Downtown Books and arts councils like the Dare County Arts Council for hosting me. So this has been really great. So I thought I would start out just by telling you a little bit about what I've written, and then I'll tell you a little bit about Feels Like Falling, and hopefully everybody will be here. And like I said, if you're just joining us, feel free to ask questions at any time. But I actually started my writing career in 2015. It was a little bit of a surprise to me. I was never planning on writing novels, so this was kind of exciting. But in 2015, my debut novel, Dear Carolina, came out. And it is written from a birth mother and an adoptive mother to their daughter about the ways their lives change in the year after her birth. And yeah, my first little book baby, and it's just so fun to kind of look back. And then in 2016, Lies and Other Acts of Love came out. And this is a story about a grandmother and a granddaughter. And you get to see them at various points in their lives and how they're in different generations. They make different decisions and how that ultimately sets them on their path. And then came my Peachtree Bluff series, which was a surprise to everyone, including me, because someone asked me to write this series. And I pitched an idea off the top of my head. I might tell y'all a little bit more about that later. It's kind of a funny story. But the first in the series was called Slightly South of Simple. And then came The Secret to Southern Charm. And then I finished out the series with The Southern Side of Paradise. But it's a series about 3 grown sisters, their mother, and a secret from their past that has the potential to reshape what it means for them to be a family. And then now, of course, the book we're all here to talk about, Feels Like Falling. So Feels Like Falling is more than any of the other books I've written. It's really a story about friendship. So it's a story about these 2 women named Gray and Diana who come from very different worlds and who meet when they are both having a really bad day, sort of on the heels of having a really bad year. So on a day when Gray could really use a little good karma and Diana could really use a little good luck, instead, Gray inadvertently gets Diana fired from her job. So this is obviously not the ideal way for these 2 people to meet, but it is what sort of ultimately thrusts them together and helps them begin to create this really unusual but extraordinary friendship that they both really need during this time in their lives, which is a really good thing for both of them. And so as the story goes on, they realize that even though they seem very different, they actually have quite a lot in common. So they both have recently broken up with a partner. So for Gray's going through sort of a nasty divorce and is just, sort of dealing with sharing custody of her son and selling her house and potentially losing half of the company that she's built since she was 20 years old. And then Diana has just broken up with the latest in a long line of really bad boyfriends. Diana is not great at making relationship decisions. And so they sort of bond over that right away. They've also both lost their mothers, albeit in very different ways. And they're also both having a really sort of serious situation with a sibling. So for Diana, her mother abandoned her and her 3 siblings when they were small children, and so they have all been sort of split up and spread out all over the place. And her brother Philip has special needs, and it is one of Diana's greatest goals in life to be able to get Philip back, for him to be home with her. And she really feels like, you know, he can make a lot of progress with how he's doing and, you know, who he is and all of these things if she has him home with him. And then for Gray, her sister has sort of run off and married this man that Gray kind of thinks is a cult leader, like, to put it mildly. She is not a fan at all of her sister's husband. And it is a serious situation, but it also provides a lot of comic relief in this story too, as you can imagine. And neither one of these women knows it, but they are both about to embark on a really great love story that neither one of them had expected. So for Diana, her life sort of starts to seem like it's getting back on track. And a man from her past comes back, and it seems like he is sort of carrying all of her secrets, and they all sort of resurface at one time. And then Gray, there are a couple different people in Gray's life that have sort of caught her attention, even though she feels like she's in a place where she's not really ready to move on. But they both learn a lot from each other and help each other move into what I like to call happily ever after, the sequel. So it was sort of an interesting time for this book to come out. I said that at the beginning, but April 28th was sort of, we were all kind of getting used to this new reality of being at home. And like I said, I wasn't on book tour, so I was doing a lot of Zooms and meeting with a lot of book clubs and organizations virtually. But I think more than that, like in a larger sense, it was an interesting time for it to come out, because at its core, this book is really about what happens when our life falls apart. You know, what does that look like? What do we do? And who are the people that we turn to in those moments to help us sort of rebuild ourselves and get back on track and start over again. And so for Gray and Diana, you know, they really end up kind of finding this friendship that helps them to do exactly that. And one of my favorite lines in this book is part of Gray's story. And she says, "Sometimes when you're speeding through thin air, the brake's worn out and the engine's shot. Maybe it feels like you're falling, but in reality, that's when you're learning to fly." And I do think that's sort of the overarching message of this book. My other favorite quote, I just have to share it with you because it's my favorite line, and it would not let me go in this story. But Diana says, "Sometimes you get right where you need to be by ending up exactly where you started." And I think for so many of us, that is sometimes true, you know, that going home or finding old friends or whatever it might be ends up being putting us sort of back on track and where we need to be. This book was a little bit different for me because usually, you know, as I showed you all of my books at the beginning, I put out about a book a year. And so, you know, I wrote a book, put it out in 2015, then 2016, and so on and so forth. But what was kind of interesting was that Feels Like Falling was a book I wrote in 2016. So it was not in my normal pattern of write a book, put it out, write a book, put it out. It was a little bit of a different situation for me. And that does go back to that series. Feels Like Falling, I was out on submission for it, which basically just means, different editors at different publishing houses are reading the book and you're hoping that one of them is going to buy it. And so it was a very nerve-wracking time for me because I was on tour for my second book, Lies and Other Acts of Love, and it was what I call my first big girl book tour. It was the first time I was going all over the country, and I was gone for weeks, and my parents packed up, and we brought my 3-year-old son, and my husband would fly in wherever we were on the weekends, and it was so fun. And I just remember really savoring it because I thought, you never know, like this might be it for me. And so an editor who, you know, I worked with for a lot of books called me, and she said, you know, I just read Feels Like Falling. I really loved it. I think there's really something there. And she was like, but I just have this hunch that you should write a series next. And I thought, a series? Like, I never even thought about writing a series. Not because I didn't really have an idea. I didn't have an idea for a series, but it wasn't really that. It was just at that point in my career, I couldn't really imagine being at the point where a publisher was going to take a chance on me for that many books in a row. So I ended up just pitching her the idea for the series off the top of my head. It was the craziest, most reckless thing I've ever done. I'm a planner, so I like to know what I'm doing and where I'm going. But it ended up working out really well, and Peachtree Bluff came out, and then we did something really fun. I live in Beaufort, North Carolina, so not too terribly far from Dare County. I'm not too from a few hours, but it doesn't look far on a map, but it's kind of hard to get. It's kind of hard to get between the two places. So we did this really fun thing in Beaufort called the Peachtree Bluff Takeover. And so my Peachtree Bluff series was set in a fictional town in coastal Georgia that was based on Beaufort, for no other reason than that my editorial team wanted me to write a series set in Georgia. I wanted to write a series set in Beaufort, so we sort of compromised, and I wrote about Beaufort with some coastal Georgia changes, so it was really fun. But we did a town takeover, and everywhere that was in the book had a sign in front of it, and there were double-decker bus tours and dinners and lunches and coffee at Coffee Kyle's. If you've read the series, that means something to you. And we just had the best time. And so my editor flew in from New York for it, and we were sitting on the beach the next day, and we had the best time. It was 2 days of just nonstop fun, and 600 people came in from all over the country, and we just had a ball. And so we were laying on the beach kind of recuperating, and I said, okay, we got to talk about what I'm going to do next. And she said, no, I really want Gray and Diana. And so that really meant a lot to me that she had read Feels Like Falling, 3 years earlier, and that she still remembered them. And I kind of hit on this earlier, but there really were, it wasn't even the story itself. There were just lines in this book that kind of kept nagging at me, that kept making me think, okay, this is a story that I want to tell. But obviously, the world had changed a lot in 3 years. I had changed a lot in 3 years. I thought these characters would have changed a lot in 3 years. And I am a person who loves to write. I mean, I love it. I live for it. I cannot wait to, get up in the morning and put words on a page. I don't love to edit, which is unfortunate, because that is a much larger part of a writer's job, is to edit what you've actually written. And so when I, sat down to really start editing this book, it was definitely the biggest editing project I've ever taken on, because I had such new and different ideas about this story. And there were so many times that I thought, what have I done? Why did I not just write a new book? This was a terrible idea. But I was really happy with it in the end, and the response has been so good. And like I said, I do feel like it was the right time. It's probably one of the lighter books that I've written. It's a real feel-good story. I think it's funny. So I do think it was a really good story for, for right now, and people when we were at home and we were in that kind of sort of dark time, just to have a little bit of something that is lighter, and that we can, hopefully moving forward, sit on the beach and read and really enjoy. And so this book is set in Cape Carolina, which is a fictional town. But I was setting it in Morehead City, North Carolina, which is right over the bridge from Beaufort, where I live. And it's a great, charming little town, and there's so many wonderful things about it. It has great neighborhoods and restaurants and beautiful water. And I just thought this will be a great place to set a book. But I had kind of gotten spoiled with Peachtree Bluff, and realizing that it's really great to make up a town, because you can have all these convenient things there. I could say, oh, I really want a boat dock over there, or I really want a restaurant in that space, or, I really wish the beach were a little closer than it is. So that's how fictional Cape Carolina came to be. But if you're someone who, grew up coming to the North Carolina coast, or you live on the North Carolina coast, I think you'll definitely recognize the North Carolina coast in this story. And if you don't recognize it, I still hope that you feel right at home in Cape Carolina. It's one of my favorite spots. I think, we could definitely see another book set there in the future. So, all right, I'm going to pop over really quick and just see, because we've got some comments and questions coming in. Oh, hi, Anne. Okay, so Anne Smith said, I have enjoyed all of your books. Thank you so much. What are your favorite books that you have read recently? Oh my gosh, I have read, this has been, I'm serious, I'm like a person who reflects on things like this. This has been one of the best reading summers of my life so far, and that's really saying something, because I have I'm editing one book, I'm writing a book, there's like a lot happening right now, but I am reading up a storm. I just finished The Book of Lost Names by Kristen Harmel. It does not come out until July 21st, but it absolutely blew me away. It is the most beautiful story. Kristen always writes about World War II, and I know some people are like, "Oh, I don't want to read any more about World War II," but you have to read this book. It's so good. It's about a female forger, like forging documents, not like foraging for food in the forest. But she saves thousands of Jewish children and helps them escape into Switzerland during World War II. So it's a really fabulous book. There were some twists and turns in this book that I did not see coming. There was just the right amount of history where I felt like I learned something, but I was so invested in these character stories. I finally got my hair cut like day before yesterday. I was so happy. But I was sitting in the salon and like crying reading this book because it was just so good. So I loved that one. I just finished Mary Kay Andrews' Hello Summer, which was so good. I think it was Mary Kay's best. I mean, it was fantastic. And if you have read some of her really, really old books where she wrote under her real name, Kathy Trocheck, you know that she started out as a mystery writer. And so the thing I loved about Hello Summer is that it combined, there's like a tiny bit of a mystery that's threading through the story, but also some of her newspaper reporting background, which is really cool. And it was just a great book. It was like just a good summer Mary Kay book, but it had a lot of like depth to it. It's really great. I loved On Ocean Boulevard by Mary Alice Monroe. That's out now. I'm trying to think of anything else that you have to read. Louisiana Lucky by Julie Pinnell is so adorable. It does not come out till August, but put it on your TBR. It's so, so cute. And it's about these sisters who win the lottery and all of the very unexpected consequences that this money has. And of course they think it's going to solve all of their problems. So that's a good one. But I definitely want you to read Feels Like Falling first, right? But there's so many good books coming out right now. So thank you for that question, Anne. That's awesome. Oh, hi, Brandy in Jacksonville. We're so close. Oh, thank you. She says she loves the Peachtree Bluff series. That's so nice. Yeah, Morehead City. Yay. It's so awesome. Well, I thought I would also tell you just really quickly about how I became an author, because I was not one of these people that grew up thinking, oh, I'm going to grow up and write books. That was just not really in my life plan. And so growing up, I really liked science, and that was something that I usually excelled in school. And so people would say, oh, you like science, you should be a doctor, you should be a doctor. So growing up, I thought, okay, great, I'll be a doctor. Sorry, I got to take a sip of my coffee. So I thought I'll be a doctor, great life plan. So my senior year of high school, I got an internship at my local newspaper, the Salisbury Post, and I went in on the first day and I thought, I'll be making coffee and copies and, all of your general intern type things. And I went in and a photographer came over and grabbed me and he said, Woodson, I've got a story for you. And I was so excited because I was, 17 and I was picturing all these grand and glamorous things that I was going to be writing about. And he said, we're going to go out and cover a giant squash that looks like Elvis Presley. And I was like, oh. And I remember saying, how many words does that have to be? Because what do you say about a squash that looks like Elvis? But he must have done a really stellar job with that piece because I got assigned the Garden Games series that year. So I got to write about 12-foot tall sunflowers and a jar of pickled asparagus that had a film on it that looked like Jesus's face and some really, really interesting things like that. But I realized really quickly that I wasn't just talking about weird fruits and vegetables. I was writing about these people and I was writing about their families. And that really meant something to me, that I got to, tell these people's stories, most of whom had never had their stories told before. So that was really, really exciting for me, to be able to get to do that. So much so that it really ended up changing my life. So I went home one night and we were sitting around our family dinner table and I said, Mom, Dad, I've decided that I'm not going to major in biology. I'm going to major in journalism. And my mom said, well, you've always loved to write. That sounds like a great idea. And my dad said, have you lost your mind? And it was a pretty good question because newspapers were shutting down and magazines were closing and the internet hadn't really hit its stride yet in terms of being able to, use it to write and make money. So this was, by all accounts, maybe not my best idea, but that's what I wanted to do. And so I went to journalism school and I loved every day of it. I was the editor of the magazine at Chapel Hill and it was just great. Like I felt like I had sort of found something that I was supposed to be doing with my life. So I got a master's in literature, in multicultural and transnational literature, actually, which, as you can imagine, my dad thought was really practical. He was like, well, that's great. That's really going to help you get a job. And so I graduated, and my husband and I got married, and we were living in New Bern, which is a little eastern North Carolina town. If there are people from all over on here, I'm not really sure. And I thought, okay, well, I have a master's. I can get a job as a teacher. I have a journalism degree. I can get a job writing. And so I looked around for jobs, and this was 2008, which some of you might remember was not the best year for the economy. So people were losing teaching jobs that they had had for 30 years. There weren't any openings at the newspaper. It was just, things were not really going my way. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just going to find a job, whatever that may be. I'm just going to find a good job. And so I ended up going to go work in finance. Of all the things, of all the things that I never thought I would do, that was a job I never, ever, ever thought I would do. There were tons of things that I could see myself potentially doing. That was not one of those things. So I tell this story a lot because it still is funny to me. But after years of school and tests and, being a pretty strong and resilient student, I went in to take my Series 7 so that I could, set up financial things for people. And it's the only test I've ever cried in. It was an 8-hour test, and it was just horrible. And I remember thinking, if I don't pass this, I can't do this job because I can never come in this room again. But I passed, fortunately. And so I spent, the next few months driving around, setting up people's 401ks and selling them life insurance. And while I was doing that, I just kept having all these ideas. And I knew from my creative writing classes that they were story ideas, which was really cool. But I didn't really know what to do with them necessarily. It wasn't, something that seemed really cut and dry to me, but they just wouldn't let me go. And so I finally thought, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write one of these story ideas, and I'm just going to see what happens. And so I started writing, and I kept writing, and I wrote a manuscript, and then I wrote another one, and then I wrote another one, and I finally thought, okay, I'm going to just see what happens. I'm going to try to get published. I know it's hard. I know it's a long road, but I'm just going to see what happens and see if, this is something that can happen for me. And so I was really excited because I signed with a literary agent really quickly. And so he was over here trying to sell a manuscript that I had submitted to him. And in that point, I had finished Dear Carolina. And so I submitted it to a writing contest, and it won. And that was great, but I didn't expect anything to come out of it. And an editor at Penguin Random House was the final round judge. And she bought Dear Carolina and Then Lies and Other Acts of Love out of that writing contest. So that was really cool, and it just felt like this amazing, magical start. And it made it feel like this was where I was supposed to be. But even then, still, I never, ever imagined that, I would be sitting here with a 6th book on the way. A 6th book out and a 7th book on the way. I had to think for a minute. I was like, wait, is it 6? Is that how many I have out? That's terrible. It's like forgetting one of your children. But yeah, so my 6th book out and my 7th on the way. I have a 7th book, Under the Southern Sky, that will be releasing April 20th, 2021. I'm so excited about it, you guys. I cannot wait to share it with you. It is a story of a woman who is an investigative reporter, and she accidentally stumbles across some information that one of her childhood friends, whose wife has passed away, they had frozen embryos, and those embryos had been deemed abandoned, meaning that any number of things could happen. So she is put in the unenviable position of having to be the one to tell him this, and then he has to make a decision about what to do with them. So the book is told from 4 viewpoints. It's Amelia, who is the reporter, and then Parker, who is her childhood friend and neighbor, and then Elizabeth, who is Amelia's good, meddling Southern mother, who has lots of ideas about her daughter's life. We always need one of those in the story. And then Greer, who is Parker's late wife. We get to see little snippets of her at very important parts of the story with her journal entries. So each one of these characters has a secret that has nothing to do with the embryos, but as it's revealed, ultimately leads to what ends up happening to them in the end. So this is a story I've been thinking about for years and years and years, and so I'm very excited to finally get to share it. All right, I'm popping back over to the comments for a minute. Oh, hi, Sheila. Last year I met you at Bethany Beach Bookstore in Delaware. It was a book signing. This is so much better. Oh, I wish we were all together too. Thank you, Sheila. That was so nice. I hope you enjoyed the new book. And That's Bethany Beach Books is another great independent bookstore. We're so lucky to have those. Another reader question: what books and authors influence your writing? That is such a good question. And that is so hard for me to answer. It really is. And I feel like this is like such the easy way out and such a like a non-answer answer. And I hate those. So I apologize for giving you a non-answer answer. But I think just growing up as such an avid reader and reading all the time, just reading, everything that I could possibly get my hands on really contributed to just my becoming a writer. And it wasn't necessarily that I read a particular person and thought that's who I want to emulate or that's who I want to sound like, although for sure I'm certain that those influences have gotten in all over the place. But I think I really realized when I sat down to start writing for the first time, you never know if you know how to write a book until you sit down to write a book. I mean, it's just like anything else in life. You don't know until you try because you've never done it before. And as I sat down and the story started coming to life, I think it just made so much sense to me that, it was coming to life and I knew how to do it instinctively because I had read so much as a child, and just my whole like adult life as well. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I also think, and this is going to sound a little bit strange because this is so unrelated to what I write, but I mentioned that I got a master's in multicultural and transnational literature. And so I was reading these stories by, authors from different countries all over the world. And it really sort of shone the spotlight for me on how special the place where I lived was and how really unique and interesting the South is. And I hadn't really realized it because, I grew up in the South. It was all I knew. And when I would read Southern fiction and Southern literature, I didn't really realize that that's what it was because that was just life as I knew it. So it wasn't anything, I didn't even realize necessarily that was a genre per se. But somehow reading about all these other cultures and, what made them special and what made them different, I think really ended up inspiring me and being something that, really kind of set me on my path. Okay, and so if anybody has any more questions, please feel free to answer them. Please feel free to put them in the comments. I would love to answer them. You do not have to answer your own questions, which I think is what I just said. But I was just going to tell you guys that Downtown Books in Manio does have all of my books available for purchase. I believe they're all signed, but I know Feels Like Falling, my newest, is definitely signed, or they're signed book plates since I haven't been able to get there to sign in real life, but hopefully soon. And also, I think somewhere in here there is a little link where if you would like to make a donation, there's a tip jar. You can make a donation to the Dare County Arts Council for hosting this amazing Courthouse series and all of these great sessions, and just to help them. I know this is it's been a really difficult time for so many of our stores and our nonprofits, and because they haven't been able to have fundraisers and things like that. So it's just a tiny little way to say thank you and give back if you are interested. So there are links here where you can do both of those things. So I also wanted to tell you so Wednesday nights are kind of special, and I know you have these amazing Courthouse sessions, so I would never take away from them. But if you are a book lover and you want to learn more, I'm doing a really fun new project with some of my friends. It's called Friends and Fiction. And we have a Facebook page online that we go live in. And it's Mary Kay Andrews, Kristen Harmel, Patty Callahan Henry, Mary Alice Monroe, and me. And we go live every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And it's just so fun. We talk about books and writing and authors. We have author guests. We've had Kristen Hanna. We've had Debbie McCumber. Tonight we have Lisa Wingate, where you can watch these all later if you have missed any of them or you want to go back and see some of these incredible authors. And then of course we do lots of different things where we'll do lots of episodes where it's just us and we're just talking about what we're doing. But again, it was another one of those coronavirus projects. Mary Kay texted us all one night and said, hey, let's have Rosé and talk on Zoom, and we did. And then someone said, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we talked on Zoom and all of our readers could see us too? And then we thought, oh, we'll do that one night. And so we did, and it was amazing. I think there were so many people that showed up, and then we thought, well, maybe we should make a Facebook group, and we were just going to do it for a limited time, and then we were going to go like once a month, and then we were going to quit. But it's just turned into something really amazing. So if you're, looking for something fun to do, we have all of our videos on our website, friendsandfiction.com, and you can tune in after the Courthouse sessions are over. You can tune in on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. and watch us, which is really fun. Okay, so Anne wants to know, what country did you enjoy reading from during your studies? So I actually, this is so funny, but when I went to Carolina, you had to take a language placement test, and I placed into like a high level of Spanish that I was a little bit worried about taking, because I was like, I don't know if I'm good enough at Spanish to actually like excel in this class. So one of the options that they give you is just to switch to a new language. So I ended up switching to Portuguese, which it just goes to show you, I took like 8 semesters of Portuguese, and I could really speak Portuguese, and I don't remember a word of it. I mean, I can say bom dia, hello. Like I do not remember it at all. It's terrifying. But in that, I actually took a lot of Portuguese literature classes before I got my master's. And so that was kind of fun. I got to read a lot of Portuguese literature. And we had to do a placement test. This is how bad it is. Like we had to do a placement test to show that you had a reading knowledge of a foreign language. So you were reading texts in that language. And I was doing that, and now I can't speak the language, and it hasn't even been that long. So that is embarrassing. But yeah, so I read a lot of that, and I read things from all over the place. I realized there were a lot of things that I hadn't read that I wanted to. So I took this really cool Victorian literature class, and read a lot of like the classics, and but they were just really, it was just texts from all over the world. So it was kind of fun. But Portuguese sticks out to me because I was doing so much of that. And what do you like to do when you're not writing? Well, that's a good question. Read. No, I do like to read. I'm not kidding, but I do love to write, and I'm so lucky and I'm so fortunate that I get to do that for a job. But I love to write, and I love to read. But we're so lucky to live on this beautiful coast, and I love to be outside and be on the boat or on the beach, or we spend a lot of time outside, just walking or, being on the boat. And I have an 8-year-old son, my husband and I do, so he is so sweet, and I do a lot of Boy Scouts and basketball games and tennis lessons and things like that, which is really fun. I also like to play tennis too, so I'm trying to like really get back into it. I used to be much better than I am now. I've had a lot of different things going on, and so I just haven't prioritized that. But I was like, okay, my son's getting really good at it. He's getting old enough that he can go play with me, and so I really need to get back into it. So that's been sort of like a fun family outing and family activity. I also, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I am a certified yoga instructor, which is kind of fun. A few years ago, it was like when I was working at my finance job, and I was thinking like, I just need a creative outlet, and I've always really loved yoga, and so I got my yoga certification so that I could teach. I never ended up teaching, but I like that I have it, and I do really enjoy that. It's definitely a part of my life for sure. And I'm going to read this because obviously no one else can read it. But it says, special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Town Bank, for supporting all of our digital programming. That is so nice. I love to see when people are supporting our communities. That's so wonderful. It really is. All right, well, if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to drop them in, because I am here to answer anything. And I thought I would tell you really briefly. I know we're kind of here to talk about the book, but I wanted to tell you about the other side of my life. Well, I guess this relates to what do you do when you're not writing also. But my mom and I have an interior design blog called Design Chic. Excuse me. That we write every single day, 7 days a week. It's www.mydesignchic.com. That we actually started 10 years ago, which is nearly impossible for me to believe, because 10 years is such a long time. And this was something that we sort of started on a whim. Mom told me one day that she wanted to learn something new, how to do something new, which I thought was really great, but also really funny because she's very busy. And I said, you know what? We should start a blog. And she was like, great. what's a blog? So I met her in Raleigh, which was like halfway between our two houses, and I taught her how to download a picture and how to send an email with an attachment, which I thought was a little nerve-wracking, that I was starting a website with a person that did not know how to send an email. And I remember leaving that day and thinking, this is the worst idea I've ever had. But it ended up actually being such a great idea and so much fun. And we have the opportunity to connect with designers and architects and really great people in the design industry from all over the world. And we have the best readers. We're so, so lucky, to have so many people that have, just been here for us and been here with us for this 10 years. And it has really, it's obviously different than what I do like on the writing end of things, but it has tied together really beautifully because especially with my Peachtree Bluff series, Ansley, who is the protagonist of that story, of all three of those books actually, is an interior designer. So I got to kind of take little bits and pieces of what I was doing every day anyway and sort of weave them into the book. And that actually happened a little bit in Feels Like Falling also, which was kind of cool. Gray, who was one of the protagonists, I mentioned that she had a company that she started when she was 20 years old, and that company was actually a blog. She actually started a blog thinking nothing would ever happen, and she ends up parlaying it and create into this marketing company that she creates and becoming really successful at a really young age. And so it's very similar to something that I do in blogging, like from the other side. And so it was something that I knew a lot about. So it was really easy for me to write about and kind of interesting to think about what it must be like to be on that side of things. Like instead of being, on the blogger side, to be on, the marketing side, who's working with the bloggers. So, so that was really fun for me to get to write for her. And then for Diana, I know a lot of you guys in your area have been so affected by hurricanes and floods and just all the crazy weather we've had the last few years. But I was actually rewriting this story during Hurricane Florence. And so we evacuated. It was actually September 11th. I'll never forget it because I thought it was really eerie that we were, evacuating from our home on September 11th. But my mother-in-law was on hospice. And so we were relocating her, and it was very scary because you just didn't know what was going to happen or what you were going to come home to. And so we came home, and our house was not livable, and it's been here on the same street since 1903. The original house had been here since like 1745, but it actually ended up burning down and was rebuilt in 1903. So a lot of history in this little spot where I'm sitting right now, and to our knowledge had never had this kind of damage before, but we knew we couldn't live in it. And I know a lot of you have had this experience of coming home to your town and everything's just destroyed and you feel very helpless because you don't really know what to do. And so I just remember thinking about that because when this story opens, Diana is at a place where she is very helpless. She has nowhere to go. She's just lost her job. She's just broken up with her boyfriend. She has $60 and she doesn't think it's enough to get enough gas to go to Asheville where her brother lives. And when I came home and I was in this moment, I knew that we could figure this out. I knew that we could, find a place to go and that, we would figure it out. But Diana's in a place where she really doesn't have any options. And so coming home and having that experience really made me think about, what do you do in those moments when you don't really have anywhere to go? So I really infused a lot of that feeling, into her story. And I think it made me relate to her character a little bit more. Deborah Mercier says, you said that you grew up somewhere special. Where'd you grow up? We spent a lot of time on Tybee Island. I grew up in Salisbury, North Carolina, which is a little town in the center of North Carolina. It's a great small town. I've written about it before. I wrote about it in Lies and Other Acts of Love. It's just a great place. I love to go back there. The people are absolutely wonderful. It was just one of those little idyllic small towns that you get to grow up in. Oh, when I said, it made me realize how special where I grew up was when I was doing, okay, I remember I was like, when did I say that? And I did say that, and my town is so special, but I think I was really meaning just like the South in general, growing up, in a certain region where, there are so many traditions and dialects and sayings and things like that that are kind of culturally rich that you can draw on. But yes, Tybee is beautiful. So I was telling y'all earlier about Friends in Fiction, and Mary Kay Andrews lives a lot of the time on Tybee, and so we do this thing every morning at 6:45 where we all get up and she texts us all to make sure that we're awake, and we do what we call writing sprints, and we all have to write. And then she like cracks the whip and she's like, how many words, what was your goal, how many did you write? She's so good. But I say that because she'll send us selfies like in her bed at Tybee Island, and it's such a beautiful place. And I did get to spend a lot of time on the Georgia coast researching the Peachtree Bluff series, so that was really fun for me, living on the North Carolina coast. And then growing up, I went to the South Carolina coast because it was so much closer to me than where I grew up than the North Carolina coast was. So we have so many beautiful coastal areas in our country, all over the place. So we're very lucky. Kathy, when will you and Wade, Viola Shipman, do another joint event? You guys were so fun. Well, Kathy, now that I know that you want us to do it, we are in. No, that is another fantastic book that I did not mention. Viola Shipman has a new book out called The Heirloom Garden. And Viola actually is Wade Rouse, and Wade writes as Viola Shipman, which is his grandmother's name, which is so sweet. And he is amazing. He's so fun, and I just adore him. And we did have the best. We actually did 2 events together. We did 3 events together. We have books coming out at the same time, and so we both are huge fans of the Cuyahoga Library in Cleveland, Ohio. And we did an event together virtually there, which was so fun. And then he hosts a virtual happy hour every Thursday night on his Facebook page, and I got to be one of his happy hour guests, and we had so much fun. And then I invited him onto a segment that I do on Design Chic called Blank to Beautiful, where I talk with different creatives about their process and their writing and where they get their ideas and all of those really fun, great things. And he is just a trip. We had such a good time together. He used to write about the Real Housewives, and so that he kind of has me there because I've been a big Housewives fan. I haven't watched as much lately. I haven't been quite as on it as I normally am, but that's been really, really fun. But he is great, and we've had a good time. And I think I will have to say about this time, even though it's been like a little bit different, I think it's been so incredible that authors have just come together in this huge way, and our readers have come together in such a huge way to support us. But we're all in it together. We were all like, okay, we all have books coming out. What do? We can't travel. And we really didn't have a plan B. There was no plan B because we always, we're used to packing our bags and getting on airplanes and going all over the country and hugging our readers and taking pictures with them and signing their books. And we didn't know, how do you kind of recreate that magic? And so it has been so fun to just be able to like combine with other authors, to share our audiences, to introduce people to writers, to introduce our readers to writers that we love, and, introduce writers that we love to our readers. I mean, it's just been, it's been fantastic. And I think really one of like the silver linings that has come out of this is like just the new friendships that we've made and bonds that we've forged, and just really kind of being in it together. It's been so fun. Well, you guys have been so awesome. So I'm just going to give, my final little housekeeping announcements. Downtown Books, right in Manio. You guys, please support them. I love them so much. They're one of my favorite bookstores. They have done so much for me. They're such a great part of the community. And all the thank yous to the Dare County Arts Council for hosting me and for having me. This was so fun. You were so gracious to let me be a part of your Courthouse sessions. I was so excited to get to be able to do this with all of you. And there is a Venmo link here if you want to support your Dare County Arts Council. Please do that, because I know all of our local organizations could use our help right now. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Y'all are amazing. And in case people are watching this later and you're not watching it live, I'll pop back in and answer questions later on. And Brandy Richardson said another installation of Peachtree Bluff would be awesome. I think that's kind of been a theme here lately, Brandy. So I think a lot of people would like another Peachtree Bluff book. And for like a year, I was like, I'm not writing any more Peachtree Bluff. But I have an idea for another Peachtree Bluff book. So stay tuned. We might see another Peachtree Bluff book soon. Maybe hopefully I'll be there with you guys in real life, and maybe we'll be talking about that in a couple of years. So thanks again, you